and we're going to try to address the question of the Lechem Mishnah today. The Rambam states without qualification that you're not allowed to learn from a Rebbe she'eno hagun. We'll read the Rambam's language. He says, "V'chein harav she'eno holech b'derech tova, etc., etc., ein mislam mimenu." And the problem is that the Sugyan Chagiga, raising the question as to whether Reb Meir was justified in learning from Acher, answers that Rebbe is okay because he's a gadol. And as the Lechem Mishnah asks, Lama lo chilek Rambam Rabbeinu bein gadol lekatan k'mo shechilku b'Gemara. Why didn't the Rambam qualify that even though he's a Rav Sheino Hagun, nevertheless you're allowed to study from him if you fit into the category of a gadol? The Ram should have mentioned that. Now, you may claim that who's a gadol, who could fit into the shoes and square up to measure up to Rabbi Meir. But nevertheless, the Rambam should have brought that down. It's a Sugyan Chagiga, and it's a halacha. So perhaps we could explain that the Rambam in fact does have this halacha, although not explicitly, and not here in Hilchos Talmud Torah, but by implication elsewhere in Hilchos Rotzeach. So I'm going to open up a Rambam Perek Zayin mi Hilchos Rotzeach halacha Aleph. The Rambam writes, Talmid shegola le'ir miklat megalin rabo imo shenemar v'chai aselo kidei sheyichya. The Torah says in the parsha of Ori Miklat v'chai, we have to guarantee the Talmud anything that's necessary to sustain his life in the Ir Miklat. And the Rambam explains, why do we send the Rebbe with him into Golus? V'chaye balei chochma v'aksher below Talmud k'misa chashuvim. To send the Talmud away without his Rebbe would be equivalent to killing him, to Misa. And the Torah says v'chai. And then the Rambam adds the following: V'chein harav shegola megalin yeshivaso imo. If the Rav kills B'shog, he has to go into Golus, then we'll send his yeshiva with him into Golus. This Rambam is based on a Sugyan Makos Daf Yud. The Gemara says, Tana, Talmid shegola megalin rabo imo shenemar v'chai, ovid le'midi dehevi le'chiyusa. Now the Gemara goes beyond this brisa and quotes Rabbi Yochanan, Harav shegola megalin yeshivaso imo. So in the brisa it says Talmid shegola megalin rabo imo. It doesn't mention the case of Rav shegola. Rabbi Yochanan in the Gemara is quoted as saying Rav shegola megalin yeshivaso imo. In betwixt, sandwiched in the middle between the brisa and the Gemara of Rabbi Yochanan, is a sugya of Rabbi Azarya. Rabbi Azarya. Rabbi Azarya is quoted immediately following the brisa of Talmid shegola megalin rabo imo. Rabbi Azarya mekan shelo yeshana adam letalmid she'eno hagun. Would we find logically a similar diuk from the statement of Rabbi Yochanan? Since Rabbi Yochanan says that a Rav shegola megalin talmid of imo, yeshivaso imo, then we should say mikan shein mislamdim eitzel Rav sheino hagun. Just like we find that Rabbi Azarya derives from the brisa that mikan shein melamdim talmid sheino hagun, because at the end of the day, if you teach a talmid sheino hagun, you'll end up in Golus, because megalin rabo imo. The same diuk should have been found in the context of Rabbi Yochanan, that mikan shein mislamdim mirav sheino hagun, because at the end of the day, a Rav sheino hagun, you're going to go into Golus, because megalin yeshivaso imo. So the Aruch HaNer is very troubled by this question, and he comes to a pretty sensational conclusion. It always amazes me that you can learn so much from what it says in the Gemara, but sometimes you can learn even more from what it doesn't say in the Gemara. So from the absence of this diuk of Rabbi Zera regarding a Rav Sheino Hogun, we derive that the problem with studying Torah from a Rav Sheino Hogun is not the repercussions. At the end of the day, you might end up in the Mikla. Because, says the Aruch LaNer, there's a fundamental difference between the first case, that of a Talmud who kills B'shogeg, and the second case, that of a Rav who kills B'shogeg. In the first case, the Rav is obligated to go into Golus with his Talmud, based on the Pasuk V'chai. The Rav has no choice in the matter. In the case of a Rav that kills B'shogeg, Magal and Yeshivasa Imo, here it's a choice decision. Although the Talmud could opt to go into Golus and continue learning by his Rebbe, he could also opt not to go into Golus, find himself a different Rebbe. So again, in the case of the Talmud, he needs his Rebbe. There's no option for the Rebbe to say, well, find yourself a different Rebbe. There's no Rebbeim in the Yer Miklat. The Yer Miklat is full of murderers. There are no Rabbanim over there. So the Rebbe says to the Talmud, I can't send you to another Rebbe. So the Talmud says, you got to come with me then. Pack your bags and come to the... So if it's only a trip of an hour and a half every day, both ways, so maybe you can do it. But if the Yer Miklat is very far away, the Rebbe is going to have to pack out and end himself in the Yer Miklat. Not every darf that's an hour and a half away from a big city is in Yer Miklat. I didn't mean to say that. But, they may even have elementary schools there, and who knows, maybe then one day they'll be Machadish to high school again, there'll be resuscitation. But the point I'm trying to make is that the Talmud is in a situation where if his Rebbe doesn't go with him into the Yer Miklat, the Talmud is, what I say, he's smothered to death. He has no oxygen, he has no Torah to breathe. And the flip side, when the Rav goes into Golus, and the issue is, should we obligate the Talmud to facilitate the Rav's ability to teach, and therefore the Talmidim have to pack out, pack their bags and move Darton over there to the Yer Miklat? Says the Aruch LaNer, the Gemara never derives that conclusion, because there is no absolute chiyuv. There's no obligation for the Talmidim to go into the Yer Miklat. Clear? Yeah. Based on the Aruch LaNer, perhaps we can answer a question in the Rambam. The Rambam that we read before, Perek Zayin Aloch Aleph, is very strange, because we know that the Rambam is meticulous about the way he formulates his halacha. That's what the Rambam is known for, he's great for, amongst other things. And if you read the Rambam carefully, it's very strange. He writes, Talmud shegol lir miklat, megalin rabo imo shenemar v'chai. He gives this whole a very elaborate explanation based not only on a pasuk, but he explains the drasha. He says, Aselo kidei sheyichya, and therefore the Rebbe has to go into Golus. And then at the end, he writes, V'chein harav shegola megalin yeshivaso imo. We could have suggested and anticipated a more logical presentation in the Rambam. The Shenemar V'chai, the logic of Balei Chachma V'lo Talmud Kemisa Chashuvim, applies equally in the Reisha and in the Sefer. Whether it's the case of the Talmud who's going to Golus and he needs his Rebbe, whether it's the case of the Rebbe going into Golus and he needs his Talmud, the Rambam should have brought down both halachas together, b'chad machta, and then shenemar v'chai. The v'chai is the reason that underlies both halachas. So why did the Rambam sandwich the shenemar v'chai right in the middle, between the Reisha of Talmud Shegola and the Sefer of Rebbe Shegola? He should have quoted both Talmud Shegola, the Rebbe has to go with him, and the Rebbe Shegola, the Talmidim have to go with him together, contiguous, without any hefsek, shenemar. And then we would understand very well that the v'chai is the explanation that's ole, or as we say in Hebrew, musav al shnei adinim hayim. But perhaps, in the light of the Aruch HaNer, we could answer this question. The Rambam wants to indicate a definite difference between the Reish and the Sefer. They're not equal. It shouldn't be quoted b'chad ha'mafta. When he quotes the v'chai, and he says that you have to do this, aselo kidei sheyichya, what does that sound like? Is that a heter or a chova? How does it sound to you? It sounds like a chova. Aselo kidei sheyichya. We have to guarantee what's ever in our power for the chiyus of the rotzeach. We don't throw him to the dogs. We want to preserve his life. In doing so, we need to preserve not only his physical life and set up mazon umayim and so forth and so on, but we also have to guarantee his sustenance on a spiritual level. Because chaye balei chochma b'li Torah below Talmud kimisa chashuvim. Therefore, the Rebbe has no choice. Is megalim rab ho'im aselo kidei sheyiv. Then the Rambam ends at that point. He says, Harav shegola megalin yeshivas imo. What does this mean? So the Aruch HaNer, I think, would claim that the Talmidim have a choice. There's no chova, but there's a rishus. And let's go through the havamim. Without this halacha in the Rambam, what would we have said? Had we applied the universal principles of Talmud Torah, as we see them formulated here in Perek Dal Hilchos Talmud Torah, what conclusion would we have derived? Let's apply the case of a Talmud Shegol. If a Talmud is going into Golos because he murdered someone b'shogeg, although it was inadvertent, it was unintentional, nevertheless there's an element of negligence, of pshia, he's a Talmud Sheino Hog. He was not careful about the life of someone else, to preserve that person's life. So what's halacha? In Hilchos Talmud Torah terms, do you teach such a Talmud? So I would say it depends. If you're teaching him berabim, if you're allowing him entry into the Beis HaMedrash, you've got a serious problem. Perhaps an Isur Doraisa. You can't let him into the Beis Midrash. He cannot participate together with all the Talmidim in the process of teaching Torah Barab. However, if he's in the year Miklat, then what kind of situation of teaching him Torah arises? Not Talmud Torah the Ram, but rather Talmud Torah the Yachid. That's a whole different story. The Divrei Meir says that if you read the Rambam meticulously here at the beginning of the fourth parak of Talmud Torah, you'll come to the conclusion that the entire discussion and the entire Isur is limited to teaching this Talmud Barabim together with other Talmidim in the Beis HaMedrash. You want to teach him privately? Or, for example, if you're the father of this young man who's unfortunately ain't a Hagun at this point, and you want to homeschool him and pay for a tutor and get a Rebbe to come, it's mutter. Now, if that be the case, for the Rebbe to go into the Mikla with his Talmud is mutter. So what's the drush of Vachai teaching me? It's not teaching me a heter. It must be teaching me a chova. Haselo k'dei sheyichi. But in the case of a Rebbe who killed b'shogeg, here the halacha is that not only is it prohibited to appoint this Rebbe as the Moser HaTorah who is teaching Torah Barabim publicly, but moreover there's a second halacha. The Rambam, if you recall, is very marich, and he says, from whom are you a mevakesh Torah? Only in Doma L'Malach Hashem Tzvakos. If he's ain't a Doma L'Malach Hashem Tzvakos, then don't be mevakesh Torah. Perhaps that Isur is on a different level, and we've discussed this in the past, but nevertheless there's an Isur. So in the case of a Rebbe Sheino Hog, we have a double Isur. Tzvei Dinim. We have one din that you cannot teach the Talmidim publicly, is Poka, Shem, Rav, Hamosras HaTorah, is possible. Number two, there's another halacha that I, as a Talmud, I'm not allowed to learn Torah from. And that's even on a private level, on a private basis, Yachid. Now the halacha of Rav Shegoa is Megalim Yeshivaso Imo. This halacha can be viewed in a whole different light. Even if you'll say that the Talmidim are going as individuals. Now, why do I suggest that the Talmidim are making this decision to go into Golus as individuals? It's not a question of the Rabbim, because the Aruch LaNer says that it's a choice decision that's left up to each individual Talmud. Does he want to go to this Rebbe? Or stick with his old Rebbe? Wait a minute, why do you stick with your old Rebbe? He gloy vilsa that he is a Rebbe, Sheino Hogan, he's not Domeh, L'malach Hashem. So now, the prohibition, which applies even b'Toras Yachid, to study Torah at the footsteps, I shouldn't say the footsteps, at the feet of a Rebbe Sheino Hagun. What is the Torah telling me now? What is the halacha telling me? First and foremost, I need a matir. So again, I repeat. In the case of Talmud Shegala, I don't need a matir. The Rebbe's teaching him privately in the Yermikla. There was no Easter involved. It's not Barabim, it's not in the Beit Midrash. But I need a chiyuv. So when I have a drasha and I cannot apply it as a matir, I apply it as a chova. The kamashma and the chiddush of the drasha, v'chai, as it applies in this case of a Talmud Shegala, is to generate a chova. Clear? But in the case of a Rav Shegala, here I need what? In order to allow the Talmud to make that decision to go into their miklat and study under the tutelage of this Rebbe who's Eino Hogan, I need what? I need a matir. So therefore it could be that the Rambam split this halach into two, so that we shouldn't equate them. The v'chai in the Reisha generates a chova, and the Rebbe has to go into the miklat because of v'chai. Aselo kidei sheyich. But in the Seifa, the Rambam says in under halach, it's a different halach. It's a halacha of matir. Why is it only halach of matir? Because if we would force the Talmidim as a group to pick up, pack out, and resettle in the Miklat, that would be a violation of a very severe Isur of appointing a Rav to teach Talmidim Barabim and be Mosalem Torah, even though he's a Rav Sheino Hagun. We don't have the ability to do so. The V'chai doesn't go that far. We're going to take the minimum. Meaning, let's minimize the radical halacha v'chai as it applies here. We're not going to allow the entire yeshiva, but rather, as the Aruch LaNer says, it's going to be an individual decision. That too is problematic, but I view the v'chai as a matir. That's what I thought we could do with this Rambam, according to the Aruch LaNer. But here I want to raise a question. The language of the Rambam, Megalim Yeshivasal Imo, even if I grant you that there's a matir here, but why Yeshivasal Imo? Because let's think, for example, why V'chai applies. The Rambam says, Chaye Bale Chochma Umevaksheha, the double language, Bale Chochma, those who have acquired Torah knowledge and wisdom, and Mevaksheha, those who desire to learn. Why the double language? Is it possible that the Rambam is referring to two different sides of the desk? The Talmud and the Rebbe. The description of Balei Chachma is appropriate for whom? For the Rav. He's a Bal Chachma. The Talmud is not yet a Bal Chachma. He aspires to do so. He's a Mevaksheha. And the Rambam describes both as individuals who below Talmud kimisa chashuvim. Not only is the Mavakesh Torah, the Talmud who needs someone to give him oxygen, is he below Talmud Kimes, but even the Rav who's a Baal Chachma, in his case he needs to teach Torah. Maybe his need is even greater than that of the Talmud to learn. He'll go to all ends of the world to make sure the Talmidim come. He'll call them up And he'll send them emails and he'll post it all over the city because that's what it means. Yosef, Yosef Rash Egel wrote a lot. But, right? But the Rambam says we have a problem here. If the Rav is shipped off to the Yer Miklot, he can't teach Torah. So here I want to raise the following question with you. From the perspective of the Bala Chochma here, in this case the Rav Shagol, what do we need to guarantee chiyus? A, we have to ship off the entire yeshiva, every single last Talmud. Is the yeshivas, we'll call it Darkei Torah, now has to move to the Miklot. We'll call it now Yeshivas Darkei Torah De'ir Miklot. New name, it's a little bit long, but we're familiar with long names. Or no, is it enough to guarantee the chiyus of the Rebbe that a couple of Talmidim go? Do we have to ship off the entire yeshiva? So what's the language when the Rambam says Megalim Yeshivaso Imo? In other words, what I'm suggesting is that if the matir here is not to appoint the Rebbe as his previous status as Rosh Yeshiva, where he was teaching Torah Barabim, there's no heter for that, because he's a Yiglai Milsa, he's not a Rav Hagun, but will allow each Yachid to do so. But we're only doing so because the pressing need of a Chai to Mevakshe, to Balei Chochma, then why not siphon it off? Why not say, let's send X number of Talmidim? You know, the Alter from Slobodka was very famous for the various satellite yeshivas that Slobodka was famous for in various shtetloch and Lita. So the Alter was an expert at choosing which Talmidim in the yeshiva, because he knew every Talmud inside out, who should go to which shtetl. And he would create little groups and say, this is the exact group, not more, not less, that has to be sent off to Kovna to create a Chabura in Kovna and so forth. So why not set up a system where, in order to guarantee for the Bala Chochma that he continue to teach Torah, that X number of Talmidim go? Why are we shipping off the entire yeshiva? Why are we allowing the entire yeshiva to go? They're learning from a Rebbe Sheino Hogun. So I had an idea which I wanted to suggest. It's a bit radical. I would like to suggest that perhaps, in the case of Rebbe Shagola, there's a double application of V'chai. A, from the perspective of the Rebbe. If he can't teach his Torah, he's a Baal Chachma, you're stealing him, you're quelching the oxygen. But what about from the flip side, from the Talmud's perspective? Supposing the Talmud makes the decision that qualitatively it will be absolutely detrimental for him to study at the feet of some other Rebbe. This is the Rebbe he has. And I wish all of you that Hatzlacha in Mirtzhem as Rebbeim, that you should feel that your Talmidim are connected to you personally in a very unique way. That's the greatest bracha you could have as a Rebbe. Such that the Talmud makes the decision that not only does the Rebbe need me, but I need him. And therefore, if the Rebbe is packing his bags and going out to Golus, I have a choice decision. I could decide to, go online and check all the Rebbeim, in the vicinity, or maybe. But you know what? This is my Rebbe. I have a special connection with him. He has a special impact on me. He teaches me Torah in a particular way. For me, it's v'chai to go to the Ir Miklat. So then what we're suggesting is that there are two halachas in v'chai, in the Sefer of Megalim Yeshivaso Imo. Halacha number one, as the Aruch LaNer puts it, is we cannot obligate the entire yeshiva to pack up and relocate in the Ir Miklat, because that would entail appointing a Rav Sheino Hagun as the Moser Tov Rabbim. That's an Isur Chomer Ma'od. But then we have a different halacha. Number two, there's an Isur to study Torah from a Rav Sheino Hagun. We're going to allow that Isur on one level in order to guarantee v'chai for the person who's going into Golus, namely the Rav, who needs Talmidim in order to breathe the oxygen of teaching Torah, transmitting it. Number two, we'll even go to the point in which every single Yachid will pack his bags and join the Rebbe in the Ir Miklat for the purpose of being taught Torah, Because Chayim Mevakshe Torah below Torah can be saying Chashuvim. He and every one of the Talmidim has decided this is our Rebbe. So imagine a yeshiva of 25 students, and every one of those students says, this is the Gadol Ador. For us. Doesn't mean he's the Gadol Ador in objective terms. But at our level, he's the one. They're all at a pack out. Would it be Talmud Torah de Rabbim? Are we appointing the Rebbe as the Moser Torah? No. It's not. It's the individuals that make up the yeshiva. If you look at it with your naked eye, there's no difference. But in Chalushem, in halachic terms, they're two different cases. But we're going to go so far as to allow every single last Talmud to pack out. Because we're going even beyond the V'chai of the Baal Chachma of the Rebbe into the Kishkis of the Chai of every single Talmud. One last point, and then the floor is yours. Are we dealing with Pikuach Nefesh and Kol Torah Kula? Is this the V'chai Bahem of what is it, Parshas Kedoshim? Or are we at the end of Bamidbar, in the Parsha of Ari Miklat? We're in the Parsha of Ari Miklat. We're not saying Chas v'Shalom that physically this Talmud is gonna perish if he doesn't pack his bags and continue with his Rebbe, who's a Rebbe Sheino Hagun. If he finds himself another Rebbe, there'll be a qualitative difference. But it's a new halacha v'chai that was formulated with regard to Talmud Torah. In what parsha? In the parsha of Ir Miklat. And therefore, the Rambam chooses to teach us the halacha of a heter, a reshus, licensed to study at the feet of a Rav Sheino Hagun. Where does the Rambam choose to classify that? In Hilchos Ir Miklat. Because what kind of an individual has the level of a gadol similar to Rabbi Meir? If you're asking what's the standard, okay, halacha l'maisa, who is Rabbi Meir? Can you and I say we are like Rabbi Meir and therefore we're going to study under a Rebbe Sheino Hagun? What's the criteria? And the Rambam finds the criteria in the halacha of Pikuach Nefesh, the new, brand new halacha of Pikuach Nefesh that was generated, that was formulated in the Parsha of Ir Miklat. Here's the halacha of Rabbi Meir, Gadol Shiny. When is the Talmud allowed to be Mavakesh Torah from a Rav Sheino Hagun? When the halacha of V'chai would apply to him. And therefore the V'chai is a package deal in this case. The Ir Miklat issue of guaranteeing chiyus works in two different directions. We're going to apply the yardstick of V'chai to the Rebbe, and therefore we're going to say the Talmud has to go in order to guarantee that the Rebbe be able to breathe the spiritual air that he needs, because he's a Baal Chacham when he has to teach. But we're going to also apply the V'chai in this whole picture to the Talmidim, and therefore the Rambam says that at the end of the day the entire yeshiva might decide to pack out as Yechidim and learn by the Rebbe Sheino Hagun. And what's the matir? The same matir of V'chai, the same new Pikuach Nefesh halacha. Says the Rambam, how do I know? How do I gauge whether or not we've reached that level of Pikuach Nefesh of the parsha of allowing a Talmud to learn from a Rebbe Sheino Hagun? Says the Rambam, when we could apply the rule of Chaye Balei Chochma V'Aksher B'lo Talmud Kemisa Chashuv. Again, I don't know practically, don't ask me step by step, who's going to be in charge of making that decision, whether it's the Alta for Slobodka or some other mashgiach. But whoever it is, he's going to sit down, so to speak, I don't mean it literally, with each Talmud and decide, does he fit into this description, this category, this adjective of Mevakshe Torah. If he's a Mavakesh Torah, then he's Rabbi Meir. What do I mean he's Rabbi Meir? He fits under the category of God. And I think the logic is that what are you afraid of? Why is the halacha so strict about guaranteeing that you're Mavakesh Torah from Misha Domo L'Malach Hashem Tzvakos? The answer is because otherwise you might be mushpa from his Maisa. He's Holich B'derech Lo Tov. But if you are a Baal Darga, if you've already attained a certain level in your own spirituality, your own knowledge of Torah, your own advance in Avodas Hashem, then we're no longer afraid that you'll pick up the bad things. You'll be like the bee that goes from flower to flower, picking up the good and leaving out the bad. You'll be borer psoles mitochocha. Why? Because you're willing to change your entire life, to relocate for the sake of Torah, to leave your pleasant, familiar society, surroundings, the neighborhood you've been brought up in all your life, and go out there, Yenem, and live in the Eir Miklat. And I believe, Derech Agav, this is more Drush, that this is a message for us today. Because I'm thinking of one particular yeshiva that produces a lot of musmachim. Some of them go into law and other fields, but some of them go into rabbanos. But ask them, how many are willing to go out to the darfs, to the Ari Mikla, to the places where they really need basic kiruv? Really go out there to the island, you know what I mean? And go into Golus. And unfortunately, I think that we need a lot of chizuk in this area. Meaning there's a dearth of young men who are willing to really go out there. Laman Klal Yisrael, to teach Torah. And how precious is an individual who's willing to do so, he fits into the Rambam's description of Mevakshe Torah. Mevakshe Torah means I'm mevakesh to study Torah, I'm willing to go to all ends of the world, and I'm also a mevakesh of a Bali Chochmah type to teach Torah and spread the light of Torah. I'm willing to go out, very, very far. Itamar, let's see the
טוב, אני לא רוצה להשבית, אבל...
לקיים את מצוות תשביתו פה.
כן, אבל אנחנו אומרים שרב שגלה ישיבתו, מגלים את ישיבתו עמו. ישיבה זה נשמע יותר כמו...
נכון, אני מסכים איתך.
הייתי אומר, אם היה כתוב תלמידיו, הייתי יותר מקבל את המהלך הזה.
אבל בוא נגיד איזה מילה אחת, זה לא יענה על השאלה שלך. זה לא יענה על השאלה שלך. But let me just say one word. If you take a look at the ratio of our Rambam here in Perek Dalet, and you compare it to the Seif, I think you will notice one important difference that I wanted to call your attention to. In the ratio, it says Talmud. Just one second. Im holech bederech lo tova, machzir no so lemutav, etc. The achakach machnisen also lebeis hamedrash. What does lebeis hamedrash mean, according to the way
limud Torah?
But which type of limud Torah?
General, public.
Mesiras HaTorah Barabim and the Divrei Miyot really points this out. Yeah. You can teach in private. Go into a private room. As they say about the judges, they go into private chambers. That you're allowed to do. But why doesn't it say Machnisin also? I have a different word based on the Rambam here in Hilchos Rotzeach. Instead of writing Machnisin also lebeis hamedrash, couldn't the Rambam have used a different term? Perhaps the Rambam could have said Moshivin also by yeshiva or something. Right? Here he's got Megalim Yeshivaso Imo. It says Talmud Shegola Megalim Rabo Imo. It doesn't say Moshivim Sham Yeshiva or Megalim Yeshivaso Imo. Why is it that sometimes the Rambam chooses the word yeshiva and sometimes he almost deliberately seems to be avoiding the word yeshiva, but rather instead of Moshivim Yeshiva, but Megalim Rabo Imo. And perhaps we could say that according to Divrei Yirmiyahu, and I'm very much influenced here by the Aruch Ladner, perhaps we could say that there is no heter except to send the Rav into Golus, but not the entire yeshiva. So then the Rav would be teaching Yechidim, In other words, this Talmud who killed someone b'shogeg is we're going to not be Megala the whole yeshiva. Again, I'm in a serious logistical bind. I mean, if we're not being Megala the whole yeshiva, you have to ask me the following question. So, what's going to happen? The Rav is going to travel back and forth. You know, his yeshiva was here in place X. Now the Golus in Ir Miklat is in place Y. You're telling me that the Rav has to go with his Talmud, but you're telling me that you're leaving the yeshiva behind, because otherwise, if you take the entire yeshiva with you, which the Rambam avoids saying, then what's going to happen is this Talmud Shein Hagan is learning together with the others in the yeshiva. So you want to teach him as a yachid. But what about at the expense of everyone else? So maybe for the rest of the group it's not v'chai because they have the option of learning by a different Rebbe. But for this particular Talmud it's v'chai. I don't know.
And if they can't?
So I'm in a bind here. In other words, what do I do? It's sort of like, a question of Hatzalah. You always have these issues about, do I save him, but what about them? Rabim versus Yachid, all the different sugyas. Here is a real choice decision, and we call it situational ethics. On the one hand, I'm committed to this Talmud. He's going Nebuch into the Ir Miklat. He will not have a Rebbe there. On the other hand, I have the rest of my yeshiva. So what do? Do I travel back and forth? And what is impossible to travel back and forth? It's even further than Hamilton. So, further. So the answer is that maybe for that Talmud who's going to their Miklot, it's really V'chai Bahem. And therefore maybe the Parsha V'chai in Ir Miklot somehow undermines and trumps the Parsha of Vishinantam Levanecha. Let these Talmidim in the yeshiva study by a different Rebbe. I don't know. On the other hand, maybe each Talmud would make the decision on an individual basis. Again, the Rambam doesn't say Moshivim Sham Yeshiva, because that would imply that the Talmud Shein Hagan who killed b'shogeg would be sitting there in the yeshiva with the other students, learning Torah b'Rav. Maybe that we're not going to be matir, but we're going to obligate the Rav on a personal level to teach Torah. Maybe the other Talmidim are allowed to come. Will they be mushpa by that Talmud who's a Talmud Shein Hagan, he murdered someone inadvertently? Maybe the answer is no, because it's not a yeshiva. So Itamar points out, if Rabbi Berzon, you're spending so much time being medayik in the Rambam, that when the Rambam avoids the word yeshiva, he means to say that we're learning Torah, teaching Torah to yechidim, then the flip side is that when the Rambam deliberately chooses the word yeshiva, then it means the whole yeshiva, and it's a Talmud Torah D'Rabim. So how do I justify the Aruch LaNer, who says that the Rav Shagala, we cannot send uproot the yeshiva, relocate it in the Ir Miklat? We never had a heter for that. Each Talmud has the rishus to decide what he's going to do. And yet the Rambam says explicitly, Megalim Yeshivaso Imo. So that's a difficult question. I don't have an answer to that question. The other question I wanted to ask you, which is very similar to Itamar's, is the word v'chein. I mean, if the Aruch LaNer is right that there are two different halachas, fundamentally different. In the case of the Talmud Shegola, we're going to allow a process of teaching him biyachidus. But in the case of the Rav Shegola, it could be the entire yeshiva will, and the whole discussion is one of a heter to matter each Talmud to learn by a Rav Shein Hagan. Is what's v'chein? But that question doesn't bother me tremendously. I'll tell you why. Because I think the v'chein is the key word that tells you that the v'chai operates in two halachas. Again, fundamentally different as the Aruch LaNer applies it. The v'chein tells me that in the ratio we're going to apply v'chai to obligate the Rebbe to go into Golus and teach this Talmud Torah for v'chai, even though it might be at the expense of other Talmidim. It will not be Megal and Yeshivasa, Moshiv and Yeshivasa, Imo. In the case of the Seifa, the V'chai is a whole different application on a very individual level. There's no chiyuv on anybody's part to pack out and go to Golus, except for the Rotzeach, obviously. But as far as everybody else is concerned, it's going to be a choice decision. The Rav has to go into Golus because he's Mechuyev Golus. He killed b'shogeg. What about the Talmidim? Says the Aruch LaNer, each Talmud will decide for himself. At the end of the day, what are you going to be left with? If the Talmidim are nidbakim b'Rambam, you'll end up with Yeshiva Soimo. The ganze Yeshiva is over there in the Ir Miklat. But, says the Aruch LaNer, Al Pi Din, it doesn't have a Chal Shem, Mesir Satar V'Rav. It's the identical Yeshiva. And the Rama wants to tell you that. And each individual Talmud would decide if for him, staying with this Rebbe is a matter of a chai. Again, the real question that I want to ask you is, does this interpretation of the Rambam answer our most difficult pressing problem? Namely, why does the Rambam omit Rabbi Meir, as I call it, in Hilchos Talmud Torah? And what I'm suggesting is that Enochinami, mitzad Hilchos Talmud Torah, Rabbi Meir had no justification in studying from Acher. The Chiddush of the Rambam is, in Hilchos Talmud Torah you will find no vestige of license for even a Gadol Adar to study from a Rebbe Sheino Hog. It's out.
The Mitzvah?
The Gemara says Chagiga, Rabbi Meir was justified. Gadol Shiny. Says the Rambam. That's not a halacha that evolves from Hilchos Talmud Torah. That's a halacha that evolves from a special matir of Pikuach Nefesh. Which Pikuach Nefesh? Not the universal Pikuach Nefesh of V'chai ben v'lo sheyomas b'hem. His life is not at stake. We're not assuming that there's a suspicion of a probability that he's going to go bezudis. We'll have to send him to Herzog. That's not what we're saying. But what we are saying is that the V'chai of Parshas Ir Miklat, which sets up a halacha of Chaye Balei Chochma below Torah, below Talmud Kemiseim Chashuvim, that V'chai is the basis for a heter for a Meir to study Torah at the feet of Acher. And that's why the Rambam goes out of his way deliberately to hide this heter, so to speak, conceal it in Hilchos Talmud Torah. He was Megala, he was Mechaset Fachayim in Hilchos Talmud Torah, he was Megala Tefach in Hilchos Rotzeach, because in the parish of Rotzeach, specifically Rotzeach B'Shogeg, there's a new halacha Pikuach Nefesh V'chai that's matir studying Torah at the feet of a Rebbe Sheino Hogun. How do I know you're a Gadol though? The Gemara says Gadol Shiny. The answer is because you're such a Mavakesh Torah that without your Rebbe is Kemisei Chashuv and your life is like death. Oh, if you're on that Madrega, you're already Rabbi Meir. Again, it's fascinating. If this interpretation is correct, then coming back to our original question, who is Rabbi Meir? Do we have Rabbi Meirs around here? Anybody willing to raise his hand and say, "Oh, I'm Rabbi Meir. I can study Torah at the feet of a Rotzeach and it won't influence me"? Won't it? The answer is, it's a very laid-back kind of answer in a sense. We're expanding the category of Rabbi Meir, of a Gadol Shiny, to include anyone who, without Torah, his life is like death. The Torah that he teaches, that he studies, is like the oxygen that he breathes on a spiritual level. That's a new matir. And that will alleviate the halacha that prohibits you from studying Torah at the feet of a Rebbe Sheino Hog. Where did the Rambam choose to codify that halacha? Where did he choose to allow these Talmidim to study, according to Aruch LaNer, as individuals at the feet of a Rebbe Sheino Hogun? In Hilchos Talmud Torah, because it all in Hilchos Rotzeach, because it all derives from the pasuk V'chai in the parasha of Ir Miklat. Now you have to be the jury and decide if you buy into this. Okay, then that's number one. All right. Now we want to go on. I didn't realize how long that would take me, so I apologize, because I have so much to tell you which I can't possibly do in a short period of time. But I want to suggest the following. If you read Halacha Aleph carefully, you divide it into two parts, a Reish and a Seif. The Reish is Talmud Sheino Hagun, the Seif is Rav Sheino Holich B'derech Tov. Clear? I don't think that's debatable. A meticulous reading of the Rambam, you've got a book that opens up into two halves, almost like a mirror image one or the other. What's the proof of my mirror image theory? V'chein. Correct? There's only one problem. And my problem is the Divrei Yirmiyahu. Because according to the Divrei Yirmiyahu, the Reish of the Rambam, Talmud Sheino Hagun, is limited to where? To the Beis HaMedrash. But the Seifa which itself divides up into a ratio, the Sefer has two different Isurim. One Isur that enjoins us from appointing this Rav, Bebeis HaMedrash, to teach and transmit Torah, because he's Eno Hagun, and the Sefer of the Sefer, which generates a private prohibition that enjoins us from studying Torah from the Mvakish Torah from a Rav Sheino Hagun. And here I submit to you, does that mean that my whole V'chein mirror image theory falls apart? And of course I have vested interests here, I'm not totally objective, to maintain this mirror image theory, and therefore I will say that with all due respect to the Divrei Yirmiyahu, there are tzvei dinim even in the ratio. Even at the level of teaching this Talmud outside the Beis HaMedrash, the Oser is not the influence and the impact of this Talmud on others sitting together with him, but rather the very act of teaching him. Excuse me, of bringing him into a higher level of Torah that he's not going to observe it. You remember the Nahora D'Oraisa about the fact that this Talmud Sheino Hagun is a Rasha, he's violating the laws of the Torah, and therefore we can't teach him Torah. You're making him not only into a Shogeg, but into a Mezid. Is the Torah for him is a Sama Moves, and the Rav therefore should not be teaching him Torah? He's being machshel him? But you'll ask me, Vushtetos in Rambam? And the answer is, once again, a careful reading of the Rambam will show us that there are two different Isurim in the ratio. The first Isur goes up to the word Amru, but there's a period before the word Amru. And not only is there a period before the word Amru, but if you look into the Yalkut Shinoi Nuschos, some have a new halacha here. Kizorek Evan Lamarkolis. What's Zorek Evan Markolis? The Ram derives from Pasuk in Mishlei, No Sein L'Ksil Kavod, Ein Kavod El Torah. Is that because of the impact this Talmidim might have on the other Talmidim in the Beis HaMedrash? Is this Isur of No Sein Kavod L'Ksil limited to the Beis HaMedrash ambiance? Zorek Evan Markulis, that's a separate Isur of sharing Torah with this Talmud Sheino Hagun. Is doch Memela Rabosai, I contend that there are two halachos in the Reish and two halachos in the Sefer. I'm not coming here to be a machmir, but I think here we have to be a big machmir. The fact that the Rambam is so marich in this halacha, and he's so harsh about who's allowed to study and who's allowed to teach, that sends me in the direction of being very harsh. Again, today in our time, it's a little bit strange to our ears. We have a much more open door policy. There are certain websites where anyone could put his Torah on the website. Where do we check out whether he's Dovel Amal Hashem Tzvakos or not? Maybe we should, according to the Rambam. But that depends upon a different issue, which Amir Tzchev will get to soon. But there are two dinim here. There's one din not to allow this Talmud Sheino Hagun into the Beis Medrash with the other Talmud. There's another din imposed, an Isur imposed on the Rebbe, not to teach this Talmud Torah. And the Rambam splits it into two. Of course, you'll ask me, if the mirror image theory is correct, there's one difference. In the Sefer, when the Rambam speaks about Rav Sheino Holich B'derech Tova, he says, Ein mislamdim imenu, we're talking about mislamdim in the Beis HaMedrash, and the next word is shenemar. Where's the shenemar in the Reisha? You remember we made a big deal about Amru Chachamim. Both in the Reisha there's Amru Chachamim and in the Sefer Amru Chachamim. The Amru Chachamim in the Sefer parallels the Amru Chachamim in the Reisha. But where is the shenemar? And I believe that perhaps the answer to that question lies in an earlier Rambam in Hilchos Deos. The Rambam says in Perek Vav Halacha Aleph Hilchos Deos, Derech Briyoso Shel Adam Lios Nimshach B'Deosav Ubemasav Achareyav V'Chaverav Lefichach Tzorech Adam Lehischaver L'Tzadikim V'Leishev Etzel HaChachamim Tamid. Who should you be rubbing shoulders with? With whom should you allow yourself to come into close proximity, close connection, only with tzaddikim. V'yisrachek min harashoyim haholkim b'choshech. Says the Rambam, Kidei shelo yilmad mimaseihem. And the Rambam says you have to also live in a state where anoshim holchem b'derech yeshara. Otherwise, you should go to a place where there are the people like tzaddikim, v'nogim b'derech tov. And the Rambam places this all under the mitzvah of alakta b'dracha. Is it therefore possible to suggest that the Rambam here in Hilchos Talmud Torah is relying on what he already established within the context of alakta b'dracha and Hilchos Deos? One is absolutely required to find himself in the company, in the society of tzaddikim, v'holchim b'derech tova. If we were to allow this Talmud Shein Hagid into the Beit Midrash to study with other Talmidim, then on a communal level, we are violating the Rambam of Alakta V'Dracha. There are two dinim of Alakta V'Dracha. One is an individual din, that each person as an individual, as a private citizen, has to be careful where he sets up his domicile, who he hangs around with, who his friends are. I remember my mother, may she rest in peace, she was just an expert. I remember in high school, she knew who were the good guys and who were the bad guys, who I should hang around with and who not. And it used to kill me because there were guys I wanted to hang out with, and she was always right. It was unbelievable how she knew it. It was like a sixth sense. It's Dr. Rambam at the beginning doesn't even have to quote a pasuk. He's already established this halach. We have to guarantee that the Talmidim eating together, drinking together, sleeping together in the dormitory, and learning together in the Beis HaMedrash, being mafalpil b'chavrusa. And all of you know what it means to learn b'chavrusa. You talk about other things. We try to minimize that here in our Beis Midrash. But, we really don't want to talk about other things, but sometimes, we fall a little bit. We're not on that high madrig. So there's an influence. There's a reciprocal impact. He's a Talmud Shein Hagid. He's out. Now the Rambam has a different halach. This has nothing to do with the social element of mutual reciprocal influence. This has to do with nosein l'ksil kavod. That's a besundere isu, which is more chabur, I would say, the reisha. It doesn't even need a pasuk because the Rambam is falling back on what he says in Hilchos Deos. Now, I admit to you that as a style, we don't like saying that the Rambam here relied on what he wrote there. But if he's already established it previously, then I can be a little bit more laid back about it, less nervous about it. Sometimes I see in the Mefarshim that when the Rambam says here in the first book of the Rambam, in Sefer Mada, is based on what he's going to say in Sefer Shoftim in the 14th book of the Rambam. Now, if we get to Perek Hey, I'll show you the Mefarshim. They say that they reinterpret everything the Rambam writes in Perek Hey based on what he says in Hilchos Mamrim. That stuff is very hard for me to swallow. But to say that the Rambam has already presented Valachta V'Drach, the basic thesis, that you are where you live and with whom you hang around with, and that's what he implies here, that I'm willing to accept. Is Mamela we have a mirror image back. The V'chein is very beautiful. Just like there are Tzvei Din and the two Isurim with regard to Talmud Shein Hagid, one is the Beis Midrash, the other is on a private level. So too in Rav Shein Hagid there are two Isurim. One is to set up the Rav in the Beis Midrash. He's got to be Domei L'Malach Hashem, and the other is on a personal, private level. Yevakesh Torah Mipiyu, only if he reaches the standard of Domei L'Malach Hashem Tzvakos. And as I mentioned to you before, it's very sharp according to the Kisvei Yad, which you'll see in the back of the Frankel edition of the Rambam, that Omru Chachamim Kol Hashona L'Talmud Shein Hagid Kilu Zarak Evim Lakos begins Halacha Beis. There are other Kisvei Yad that begin Halacha Beis with the word V'chein, V'chein Arav. That also I understand, because V'chein Arav, the word V'chein in the Sefer, which according to those Kisvei Yad kicks off Halacha Beis in the Rambam, That v'chein is going back to the first halacha in the Rambam. And it's referring to the Beit Midrash situation. So the Rambam wants to set up two halachas. Halacha Aleph, again according to the Kisvei Yad, that the v'chein kicks off halacha Beis. Halacha Aleph addresses the issue of Talmud Shein Hagun in two different levels on two different isurim. Halacha Beis addresses Rav Shein Hagun and a Holach B'derech Yishara in two different isurim, and the v'chein, which opens up halacha Beis according to those Kisvei Yad, referring to Rav Shein Hagun in the Beit Midrash, teaching the Talmidim Hamislamdim Mimenu. That v'chein goes back to the original Isur Doraisa of Talmud Shein Hagun in the Beit Midrash.